What is going on, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. I'm Sean Davis. So welcome into the reveal of my number 12 ranked team in my NBA preseason power ranking series with a deep dive into the Indiana Pacers. Pacer fans, rejoice. Your team is starting off a very, very new tier of mine. This is kind of we're calling this my frisky NBA championship contender tier. This is kind of the tier for me, at least, where it is in the 2% probability or less outcome that this team's going to win an NBA championship. But is there a lower variant outcome that this team can win an NBA championship this year? I think yes. I think the Pacers are kind of the perfect team to kind of kick this tier off. I'm really, really big on this Pacers team, as you guys can tell here, by giving them this 12th ranking here. Pacers for me coming in with an 82.345 grade, just barely beating out the Magic and the Pelicans. Sorry again, guys, for skipping around some of these episodes. Really just need to get as many teams as we can covered and completed before the start of the season. This series takes a lot of work to get done, and I do apologize dearly to Pelicans and Magic fan. Really excited about NBA content. Those could be starting up here on the channel. With the first full season, kind of covering the whole league as a whole, especially here on this channel. I got a bunch of great announcements, but this Pacers team coming up in Eastern Conference Finals run, they have real expectations now, and I am definitely putting real expectations on them. Like I said, they're my third tier of teams in the league, and these are all teams that if they for sure miss the playoffs, it is a massive failure. At the very least, I think all these teams need to win a round at the very least. Once again, I don't think I've actually announced it on this channel. Just now kind of getting settled, moving in and things like that. So apologies about the background for now, but we do have our Anthony Davis jersey behind me. We got Shaq behind me as well. Once we get some other announcements, stuff like that, Paulo will be coming back. We'll add some more cool stuff in the background, but no, enough of the kind of housekeeping notes there. Let's get started how we always start off here. Once again, looking at our graphic. The Pacers, like I said, we are starting to get really nitpicky with some of these teams here. The Pacers, 82.345 grade. I'm really stoked to break down this Pacers squad. But, let's start off with this team's offseason, their additions and departures. And, the Pacers, honestly, just ran this thing back. And I can't really fault him for that decision. The biggest thing they did, honestly, and, this might be a hot take, but the biggest thing they did was get Johnny Furphy in the draft. Oh, my God, what a home run. I loved Johnny Furphy in this draft class. He is such a perfect fit. And we're going to talk about him in just a second, but ironically, one of my weirder comps in this class, Johnny Furphy, my comp was kind of Aaron Nesmith, who is here in Indiana, ironically. And we'll break down why, obviously, in a sec. They bring in James Wiseman, who, I mean, as a backup, you have a solid backup rotation. It's James Wiseman and it's Isaiah Jackson. James Wiseman, not nearly the defender, I don't think that Isaiah Jackson is, but a really, really, dare I say, dominant finisher around the rim. Finished at a 74% clip last season around the basket. Just doesn't have the activity that Isaiah Jackson has. Now, with Isaiah Jackson, you obviously have to worry about injuries. He played 60 games last season, 63 the year before, and only played 36 in his rookie season. So, you can almost bank on Isaiah Jackson missing at least 20 games during the regular season, and hopefully he's able to play come playoff time. But and then they only lose Jalen Smith, and you replace that with James Wiseman again, just depth pieces, to be quite frank. And then you lose Doug McBuckets, who I think for this team you didn't really need anymore. So a perfectly fine loss for this team. And, now I do briefly kind of want to discuss this team's kind of contract situation, because they made a lot of decisions, this summer. They obviously they pay TJ McConnell, they pay Andrew Nembhard. They made a lot of long-term decisions, and I'm going to give the Pacers credit. I think they built this up the right way. And again, maybe a hot take here, One of my least favorite kind of narratives, NBA you'll see on NBA Twitter and things like that, is that the Pacers and Kings deal for Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. One of my least favorite takes I've heard is that was a win-win deal. It's a deal that both teams ultimately benefited from, yes, but it's not on the same level. The Kings got a guy that helped them make their first playoff run in 2 decades, if I recall correctly. Helped them get 48 wins, helped them get a 3 seed. Whereas here with the Pacers, they got the guy, they got the face of the freaking franchise out of that deal, who's only 24 years old. He has a massive contract now that runs through the 28-29 season. Only going to be making $42 million this season. He's actually on a pretty identical contract up until the last season with Pascal Siakam, which we'll talk about. Siakam, another guy that, they decided to pay. They also decided to pay Obi Toppin. The Obi Toppin decision, as a Jarace Walker fan, that kind of bums me out because I really, really like Jarace Walker and a team that desperately needs defense. Because of contract obligations, I think they're going to pay, play Obi Toppin. He's the 4th highest paid player on the team. They have Aaron Nesmith locked up. They have this entire core locked up, except Miles Turner, who's in a contract year. They weren't able to really get anything done with him. He's in a contract year. He's 28 years old. He has a lot to prove heading into this upcoming season. But like I said, extending TJ McConnell, bringing in James Wiseman. This team is all on the court. Andrew Nembhard, I'm perfectly okay with that contract that he got. So let's start to dive in now to kind of our player evaluations and grades and things like that, how we feel about this team. And let's start things off with our tiers. So Rick Carlisle, coming in for me, my tier 3 of NBA head coaches, ranking 9th to 13th. This bench is a loaded bench. And honestly, I might be selling them short. I have them currently ranking in my second tier of NBA benches from 3rd all the way to 8th. The top tier of NBA benches are really, really damn good. As a matter of fact, I have them technically 3rd overall for bench grades for me in the entire league. This bench is phenomenal. And like I said, arguably can be thrown into that top tier, making a 1 through 3. Obviously, the significant drawback with this team is the defense. And to their credit, they turned it up come playoff time, especially when it mattered most, to their credit. But there's still a lot of, things I am worried about with this team defensively in the regular season. And that's probably just like step 1 in terms of like my biggest concerns about this team and why they won't, potentially win an NBA championship is, can this defense get more respectable for an 82 game sample size? Because again, historically speaking, it is damn near impossible to win an NBA championship over the past 3 decades without having it at worst a top 15 defense. At worst, the only 2 teams who have ever won an NBA championship since 1996, if I recall correctly, without having actually top 13, without having a top 13 defense, would have been the 2001 Lakers and would have been the 2023 Denver Nuggets. The only 2 teams ever to do it, and that is because the Nuggets, they kind of coasted and stopped caring about basketball in March, but they also had the best player on the planet, and they were the 15th ranked defense. It ramped it up come playoff time. And that Lakers squad was incredibly injured, but had Shaq and Kobe, and once again ramped up the defensive intensity come playoff time. Every other team besides them had a pretty damn good defense. Maybe not elite, but they had at least an above average NBA defense that could also ramp things up. And that's obviously the biggest drawback. Honestly, forget everything else. The Pacers not having a good defense is single-handedly going to be the thing that holds this team back from winning a championship this season. But let's get back to the positives. Let's talk about why this team is freaking awesome. And that starts obviously off with Tyrese Halliburton, who is outstanding. And honestly, I don't think he's scratched the surface of how good he could be. And the reason being is, you look at Tyrese Halliburton essentially until he got hurt, which would have been right around the in-season tournament or the end of the in-season tournament. And objectively, he was an MVP candidate. He was playing like one at the very least. And he was the third best point guard on the planet, considering depending on how you view SGA, he's the Thunder's point guard. But okay, fine, we'll consider him one. So it's Luka, SGA, and then it was Tyrese Halliburton pretty definitively. Like, love Steph, love Jalen Brunson, love all these other cats. Tyrese Halliburton, before he got injured, was the third best point guard on the planet. And he has the hamstring issues. And that really, really just messed up the rest of his season. He tried to rush back from the hamstring injury, and that made things a little bit worse even. It really tanked his production. There were moments in the playoffs where he kind of had that burst again and things like that he had. I mean, dog, go pop on some of those games early in the season. Hell, even in January even. And maybe I got the timeline a little bit off, but you get my point. Pop on some of these games of Tyrese Halliburton pre-significant hamstring injury, and the burst he was playing with was insane. And he's already not this ultra elite athlete or quick twitch guy. But for him, the ability to create space and separate was absurd at the beginning of the season. And he is the engine of this offense that derives so much off of Tyrese Halliburton's ability not only to get paint touches and get downhill. Per BBall Index, he averages 14.2 drives per 75 possessions, which is incredible, right? But then also on said drives, it is so important for this team that you have a Howdy that can create and get downhill and penetrate out to these guys. 51.6% of his drives lead to pass outs. And this team's offense does kind of let their guards be initiators and create for others and have these other guys attack and make quick decisions off the catch and play off of the gravity that a Halley, that a Pascal to a lesser degree, that a Nimhar, that a McConnell, that those guys make, even to a lesser extent like a Benedict Mathurin, right? And this is honestly a compliment I'm going to give Tyrese Halliburton here. I think for the most part, the three best playmakers in the league, or the three most talented playmakers in the league, is Trae Young, Luka Doncic, and Tyrese Halliburton. I think those three guys are fantastic at the art of just playmaking and creating in one-on-one or pick and rolls or whatever for their teammates. And if Trae Young and Luka Doncic are like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, going with the NFL comparison here, Tyrese Halliburton is Justin Herbert. Shout out my Chargers. But what I mean by that is he's Justin Herbert in the sense of he can do physically, like for Trae, Luka, and Hallie, it's a little bit different because we're not talking about like arm talent. We're talking about like, with the ball in their hands, obviously. But physically, with the ball in their hands, actually, it is kind of similar. Halliburton can do every single thing from a playmaking standpoint that Trae and Luka does. But he dials it back just a little bit to where you don't have those uncharacteristic 8 turnover games. Or, I mean, when it does, it's a dime a dozen. It rarely ever happens where with the Luka or with the Trae, because of how aggressive they are, maybe this doesn't speak to Mahomes now because, the Chiefs have changed some things with how they play and the league's kind of done it for them. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like where Mahomes and Josh Allen might have the random 1 or 2 interception game where you're like, dog, what the hell was that? And you're not going to get that from a Herbert or whatever, right? And it has its perks and things like that as well, right? But for Josh and for Mahomes, the same does for Trae and Luka. But just because, man, that Hallie isn't this ultra turnover prone guy does not mean he's equally as good of a playmaker. And honestly, if we're talking about just the ability to play the position and be a true quarterback of the offense, kind of ironic there, nobody arguably does it better than Tyrese Halliburton. He sets these guys up perfectly. He's an incredible jump shooter. Thank God Steve Kerr told Luke Walton's thank God he told Luke Walton to not mess with the kid's form. That paraphrasing, I believe that's what Steve Kerr told him. But thank God, because he's an incredible shooter. The efficiency, that was his career low in 3-point percentage. But again, that's because of he didn't have as much lift. And it was really, really obvious come playoff time. Just the lift was completely gone from his shot. And it's unfortunate. Again, outstanding playmaker. You could argue that he's only getting better. He's again just now about to he's just now 24. He'll be 25 in February. I'm a big Tyrese Halliburton fan. Legitimately one of my favorite players in the league. Keeping the art of being a true point guard alive, and I'll have to get a Hallie jersey to add to my collection sometime this season. But it's enough for Tyrese Halliburton. Let's move on to another guy that I adore. And this is one of my favorite draft takes. I freaking loved Andrew Nembhard, man, coming out of Gonzaga. Back when I was doing my Raptors coverage for Raptors Nation, shout out to my guy, Luca Rosano. I was pounding the freaking table for the Raptors to get this guy. And the Pacers snatch him one pick away from the Raptors in the second round. And I said, damn, he's going to be, I didn't know at the time how much opportunity he was going to get. But I said, man, if this guy gets a chance, he's going to be so good. And honestly, Nembhard kind of has the arrow pointing up. Him and Benedict Mathurin, we'll talk about on the bench here in just a sec. But both of these guys can kind of in-game low manage Tyrese Halliburton a little bit more, so where you're not running Hallie in 1 billion ball screens per game and just tanking him and forcing him to overexert himself. Save the legs for Hallie. Get him to the playoffs. And Andrew Nembhard had a freaking ridiculous playoff run, guys. He was phenomenal in that postseason where he, especially in the absence of Tyrese Halliburton, showed his ability to play quarterback of the offense at a really, really good level. Not the level of a Tyrese Halliburton, obviously, but the playmaking, the ability to get in the teeth of the defense and penetrate for his teammates. We said Halliburton's drive pass out rate was above 50%. Well, guess what? Andrew Nembhard's was at the 48% number, right? Not quite the playmaker, but again, damn near. Like, he is a really, really good playmaker there that for this system, he plays so well next to Hallie because what Rick Carlisle really, really wants for these guys is to be able to make quick decisions off the catch. And if you look at his spot up numbers last season per synergy, Andrew Nembhard was in the 79th percentile in efficiency out of spot up scenarios, where it's essentially we're playing off ball. We have to make a decision off the catch, maybe attack off of that, knock that a catch and shoot three, etc. And he had a great playoff run. He's a perfect fit next to Hallie. He competes his ass off defensively to where if you're playing a really, really good team, like you're playing a Knicks, for an example, right? You have him and Hallie doesn't have to take the tough defensive assignment. It's, okay, who's guarding Jalen Brunson? It's Nembhard and it's Aaron Nesmith, who we're going to get to here in a minute. And during a regular season, he didn't really shoot the ball well from three, but in the playoffs, he was lights out. 48% from three in the playoffs. With him, you're obviously banking on kind of the playoff numbers staying the same. And kind of my one gripe, if you even want to call it that, with Andrew Nembhard is I would personally like Andrew Nembhard to take more threes off the bounce. That's probably a big phase for him in his development. In the regular season and playoffs combined, he only took 48 pull-up threes, shot 31% on them. He's a lights-out catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, shot 41% on catch-and-shoot threes, regular season and playoffs combined. But he took 189 pull-up twos, and I get it. That's a great part of his game or whatever. And I'm not even trying to say, like, we're going to take it away. But let's throw in a few more. Pull-up threes and things like that to make his shot profile look more dynamic and things like that. And I'm really, really excited for Andrew Nembhard. Like I said, this contract, perfectly all right. It's a 3-year deal, a 3-year extension. He'll make $18 million next year, then 19.5, then 20.9. He'll be up for an extension after the 25-26 season. So Andrew Nembhard's awesome. I really, really hope we get a full year of him next to Hallie. And we really, really get to see what both of those guys with the newfound kind of confidence and, dare I say, swagger of Nembhard, hit the game winner against the Knicks, had some remarkable playoff games where the Pacers, to be completely honest, had no freaking right to be in that series against the Celtics. I know people hate it was the competitive sweep argument. But bro, they lost game 3 and game 4 without their best player, who's a top 20 player in my opinion. They lost those 2 games by combined 6 points. They had the lead in both of them. And it's because of Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard was efficient. Game 3, 32 points, 9 assists, only 2 turnovers, 66.7% effective field goal percentage. Game 4, 24 points, 10 assists, only 3 turnovers, 63.9% effective field goal percentage. I don't know what to say. Now, again, you could say he just exceeded expectations. Like his expected shot quality, he overshot or overexceeded like the expectations based off of shot quality. But Andrew Nembhard had a great run, and I'm excited to watch him really, really put it all together next season. And I hope we are rating him appropriately here. But then you have Aaron Nesmith, who Boston kind of gave up on. And he really, really struggled at the beginning of his career. The 3-point shot wasn't consistent, and therefore he really wasn't able to kind of put on full display what his strengths are, and that is his strengths as a defender, where Aaron Nesmith is really, really fun as a defender, guys. He was kind of a wing stopper last season, so if you have a wing like a Tatum or you're facing the Knicks next year, maybe you'll get the OG or Mikal matchup more specifically, right? But he's a really, really good defender, really, really active hands. I love how he chases around, navigates ball screens while also being able to kind of keep in front. Has some versatility, although he's primarily guarding like the shot creators and primary ball handlers, things like that. When you look at Aaron Nesmith, I mean, honestly, I think he's just kind of found this nice little pocket for himself where he is a 3-and-D wing. I think he has good timing for his cuts. He's not a ball stopper necessarily. Shot the hell out of the ball in transition. Shot 42.9% on transition threes. Rick Carlisle will use him in like some fun off-screen actions, or use him as a screener for some pick and pop game. They went to that 24 times for some pick and pops and things like that. I would like him to be maybe just a touch better around the basket. Like, he shot 56% on layups, which, isn't the worst, but, I would like to see him improve a little bit. And, it's kind of right. He took the same amount of same volume of pull-up threes that Andrew Nembhard did. So, again, going back to Andrew Nembhard, if there isn't a larger point to be made about Nembhard, why is Aaron Nesmith taking more pull-up threes than you? So there we go. And then we have Pascal Siakam. I think, first off, for him, this is a perfect spot. Toronto, I think, falsely kind of bought into Pascal Siakam after the title run. I don't even want to fault him for that, right? Then you had the bubble year where he played really, really well, helped that team get a 3 seed, if I recall correctly. They lose in the second round of the Celtics in 7. Then not the next year, but the following year, they have kind of this really fun team that was a top 5 seed in the East, loses to Philly in the first round, but Siakam was great. But, I think all we've seen from Pascal Siakam in recent years is just that he's not a 1. And I'm not trying to just bash on Pascal Siakam here, but I think that kind of the way he played without Tyrese Halliburton, specifically like in game 3, game 4, I think just really showed he's just not a 1, and that's perfectly okay. Pascal Siakam is a damn good number 2, though, and I'm really excited for this Pacers team to see how well Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton, how their connection continues to like develop, and they're continuing to figure some things out. Pascal, they're able to go to him in post-ups, which really opens up this offense a little bit more. They have another legitimate action that they can go to that's not a Hallie pick and roll, Hallie ISO, things like that. And he is really, really efficient in the 92nd percentile for pick and roll. I'm sorry, for post-up scoring possessions, which is crazy. And as a matter of fact, did we pull up some of the data here for that? So give me one sec. When pulling up players, this is per Synergy, with players that have at least 2 post-up scoring possessions per game. Pascal Siakam is number 1 in the entire league in effective field goal percentage on post-up scoring attempts. Number 1, 64.4%. Better than Kristaps, better than Giannis, better than Jokic, better than Embiid, better than Sengun, better than Sabonis. You get my point. As a post-up kind of mismatch target, and even if it's a bigger player, he has more than the capabilities to turn, face up, and kind of navigate from that spot as well. Pascal's fun. He's a really, really creative player for this team. He's a capable playmaker. I think he had his best season playmaking wise a couple years ago. And this team doesn't necessarily need him to playmake, but kind of having that second and third creators and Pascal and Andrew Nembhard, I think is really, really important for this team. And Pascal, I don't think is this great defender, not in the slightest, but I think Pascal does provide some at least versatility for this team to where he's a solid helper defensively, right? I think one of the biggest things he provides for his defense is his rebounding ability. Really, really good rebounder if you look at like his adjusted defense rebounding success rate. I think that Pascal has the length to at least try to help stay in front against bigger wings and things like that. Like he's kind of the other wing defender. If Aaron Nesmith is that, then the bigger wing, if you will, that they're gonna get that task, and that's gonna be Pascal. But in a dream world, they're gonna let him kind of roam and help out Miles Turner around the rim so he can get they could get a little bit more creative with their coverages defensively. I like Pascal, and I think this is a perfect little pocket for him in terms of landing spot. I don't know how I feel about paying Pascal $52 million in his age 34 season. And if there's anything, and I don't want to sound hypocritical because, this team, rightfully so, are deciding to run it back, after an Eastern Conference Finals run where your 6th overall pick in the 2022 draft was hurt. Your best player was battling injuries all year. They have every right and want to kind of run this thing back. But if there was one thing I would kind of look at and say, I don't really know if I'm bringing this guy back, it would have been Pascal. It's not like you gave up you gave up your first this year that turned into Jacoby Walter, and you gave up Bruce Brown. I know they gave up something else. I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head right now. It wasn't Buddy, because Buddy, that trade's kind of losing me right now. But that's the one guy when I look at this team, I say, yeah, not all the way sure I'm really doing that. And then honestly, somehow this team's under the first tier apron for right now. But next year, let's say you do decide to extend a Miles Turner, you pick up the options on some of these other guys. Now Miles Turner might be a cap casualty here in Indiana. That's going to be a storyline to keep an eye out on. Now, in terms of the second tier apron, they're still fairly, clearing that right now. They're projected to be $37 million under that second tier apron. That's as of right now. But again, that's without extending Miles Turner. I don't know if Spotrac accounts for some of these team options, like a Benedict Mathurin, like a Jarris Walker, who we assume they're going to pick up on. So I liked Pascal. I think though this team, if Pascal's their second best player, I think this team kind of has a ceiling, and it's on Hallie and it's on some of these other guys to kind of try to crack through that glass ceiling. Because I think what Pascal Siakam is. He's a fine 20 point per game scorer during the regular season. But he's fine. He's really, really just good player. Like I said, good rebounder. That would be beneficial for this team. The 3-point shot, you at this point, man, you really just hope that it could be consistent. But he does a lot of good stuff for this team. And then we got Miles Turner, the guy that we were kind of just alluded to there that might become a cap casualty. He hasn't been this, dare I say, elite, ultra active defender in a few years. Now, the bright side for Miles Turner is, if you're a Pacers fan, and this is a big year, is Miles Turner's just coming off his healthiest season, and quite frankly, his best season in a while. The last time Miles Turner played 70 games would have been 2019. To set the landscape for you guys, 2019 would have been LeBron James' first season as a Laker. That's how long ago that was, when Miles Turner, was healthy and on a basketball floor for 70 plus games. Kind of the evolution for Miles Turner has been really, really fun to watch, and I do like Miles Turner, and this is a really important year for Miles Turner. And I think when I look at Miles Turner, he's a really, really good fit here. He's a good screener, which is super important for a guy like Hallie. He's a really, 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 really good, pick and pop threat. He's a smart finisher around the basket, has great timing for his cuts from like the dunker spot and things like that. He's flashed ability to attack off of closeouts, make connective playmaking reads and things like that, get to the jumper, get to the rim. Kind of Karl Anthony Towns-esque in some weird ways. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's not this spectacular defensive rebounder. If you look at something like the advanced metrics and things like that, but he gets a lot of opportunities and he does ultimately do a good job at it. But the positioning and things like that with Miles Turner could be better. Really, really good rim protector, great shot blocker, things like that. Has some versatility. And again, that's where you do hope that a guy like a Pascal can step up and help. Or in a freaking perfect world, Jarius Walker, please play that guy, because they could get so more creative and really, really utilize a Miles Turner defensively in a lot of freaking fun ways that I don't think we've seen, honestly, since they had the too big look with him and Domantas Sabonis, where you go back to that season, he's being used as a anchor big right now defensively, so they're going to use him in a lot of drop. You go back to that 2019-2020 season, defensively had one of the best years of his career, where he does have the mobility to be a bit of a hedge big and things like that, right? And be a great shot blocker. That season, we saw him be incredibly versatile. I was watching some of the tape from that season not too long ago, right? I'm a Miles Turner fan. I hope he really, really balls out this season, because Miles Turner balls out. That's only going to be a good thing for this Pacers team. If Miles Turner is able to kind of continue his growth as a player and continue playing really, really good basketball here. I have him graded as an 82 overall. I think he's a good player, and I'm excited. In general, I know I've said that a lot. Drink every time I've said the word excited, but I am. I really am. And then TJ McConnell. I mean, how about TJ McConnell, man? The career he's kind of built for himself, man. It's so freaking fun. Another guy that I think had a fantastic playoff run, truthfully. Had a great playoff run. He's another guy that's able, that allows Hallie to kind of take a back seat and, not have the burden always on him. And again, using kind of my quarterback comparisons here, TJ McConnell is the perfect backup quarterback in the NFL, right? Where, all right, QB1 goes down. All right, who's the guy that can run the offense perfectly how we need to, hit all the reads, press all the right buttons? And that guy's TJ McConnell. Not going to make a lot of mistakes. They have a type here in Indiana with Carlisle for kind of their lead guards. High volume playmaker, low volume like turnover type of guys. Again, we're not looking for the most batshit crazy passes, but we are looking for the guy that can kind of just, again, run the floor, be the quarterback of the offense, if you will, here. And another guy that's just an insane freaking driver, who ironically might be the best driver in the league. He's actually he's a better driver of the basketball than Tyrese Halliburton is. But he does it with great poise and patience and manipulating defenses and knowing where teams are going to overreact and overhelp from and things like that. One of the smartest players with the ball in his hands in the league. Averages a ridiculous 25.8 drives per 75 possessions. That's stupid. That makes Tyrese Halliburton's number look minuscule compared next to TJ McConnell's number, right? Now, again, another type, and this is why this is so important for this offense. 49.6% of his drives turn into pass outs for other guys on this team, and that is the driving kick ability from the three guards and Pascal to a certain extent is so important for this team's offense that wants to get out and run. And McConnell maybe doesn't push the pace as much as a Halley does, but damn, he can still fly and help advance the ball up the floor and do some really, really cool things. While also, again, being a super high leverage playmaker that doesn't make mistakes. He's probably more careful with the basketball than Halley is. But then also defensively, he's a pest. That's the best way to describe him defensively. He's a pest. And he's better, maybe not than a lot of guys, but he's better than a few starting point guards in the league. He is easily the best backup point guard in the NBA right now. The best true backup point guard in the NBA. I don't think it's that much of a debate as of right now. And, you know, the contract he's on, it's perfectly fine. It's a 4-year deal, but really a 3-year deal because the 4th year is non-guaranteed. It's only guaranteed half of that, a little less than half, actually. $5 million out of $11.8 million contract. So even if he falls off a cliff after 2 years, you really only have 1 true year left of TJ McConnell, and he's an expiring contract at that point. So I'm glad they're able to get his extension done. He's a big piece of this team. And just the pest, he's a great deflections guy, does a lot of little tacky, like just annoying ass stuff defensively for an opposing offense. Obviously the 3-point shot's the biggest thing with TJ McConnell and why he's never really developed into this consistent night in, night out starter. But the defense, the playmaking, the paint touch ability, we're in this world full of analytics and things like that. Having a guy like TJ McConnell that is this elite paint touch guy is so important, man. And do I like watching TJ McConnell. He's such a fun player. And then you go to the rest of the pieces on this bench. Ben Shepherd is the rookie that they really, really chose to go to last season. And Ben Shepherd had a really good postseason run. Really good postseason run. A guy that, again, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Coming from Belmont, right? Really good 3-point shooter. Actually could have shot the 3 ball a little bit better last season than he actually did. But I like Ben Shepherd. They'll use him as an off-screen threat some too. They'll get creative. I think he's a pretty good defender. And I'm excited for the year 2 jump that we can see from Ben Shepherd. But then it's time to talk about a guy that I'm probably going to include in my breakouts list here for this season, heading into year 3. One of actually, if I recall correctly, this guy might be the very first prospect I've ever evaluated. A guy that I really, really just pounded the table for. And that is going to be Benedict Mathurin. We got to break him down. He's entering a very, very, very important year 3. And I know I've kind of said that has been this running theme for a few of these guys, but he's extension eligible after this season. And, you know, very rarely, I know the Rockets are kind of in a similar situation where they have guys that are entering that they passed kind of the contract extension window, did get a deal done, but it's not the worst case, not the end of the world, right? With Benedict Mathurin, if he doesn't show the signs that, man, this guy still has the all-star potential that I saw in him, then, yeah, I think it could be, quote-unquote, the end of the world where if he doesn't really perform this season, does he get that contract extension, the rookie scale extension or whatever, you know, following this upcoming season? And again, if that happens, then it really complicates things, knowing that they're paying Pascal all that money, you're paying some of these other guys. Then Miles Turner really is a cap casualty unless you're trading him, or actually not trading him, you're letting him walk, or you're willing to be a second April team. And the second April team, luckily for them, wouldn't be until the 26-27 season. So, I mean, you'll be able to bypass it a little bit. But, you know, going back and look at my draft grade and my scouting report on Benedict Mathurin, I had a top 6 grade on Benedict Mathurin, so this was perfect value. Actually, mine about top 7. I think I'm 7th on my board. There's people that kind of viewed him as this 3-and-D piece moving forward. To be completely honest, this is kind of who I thought Benedict Mathurin was going to be. He's going to be this guy that at times can really, really struggle with the efficiency. And I think it's the efficiency and in this system, the ability to make quick, sharp, decisive reads. I think those two things combined with the defense, which I said on my scouting report, he has the potential to be a good defender. He has all the athletic traits in the world, right? But he just isn't locked in enough on that on the floor. That worries, that issue is kind of still the same. And to be quite blunt with you, a semi-inconsistent, microwavable scorer off the bench is it the most that can't play make, that can't defend? Is it the most sexy thing in the world? So that's why this is a big year 3 for Benedict Mathurin. But he's this flat out dog. He's this ultra competitor, and he's gotten a lot of praise coming out of training camp about the competitiveness, but he's also kind of taken from that playoff run a little bit of humbleness as well. And like, oh shit, like this team doesn't need me necessarily, but I can kind of be that piece to put us over the top. And when we talk about the 0.7% chance or whatever that the Pacers make a run and win a championship this season, which is kind of the premise of this tier here, not likely, but I mean, definitely not likely, but in a, think of Doctor Strange and the 1 out of 13,405,000 or 405,000 or whatever the number is, universe is the one that happens with the Pacers win a championship. It's Benedict Mathurin taking that step to being maybe not an all-star, but being the guy that I saw coming out of that 2022 draft class where it's, man, he's athletic, has solid handles. I still think you can kind of tie them up, but the 3-level scoring ability, can get to the paint almost whenever he wants. I still think you want to see him take, some steps as a finisher around the rim. Not something I'm overly concerned about, but just a little note there. Good driver to the rim. Create some of his shots. Want him to play a little bit more and a little bit better off the ball. Good shooter. Obviously, crazy pull-up shooting threat. He takes that step, and this Pacers team can kind of go on an improbable run, if you will. Defensively, just got to lock in. Got to be able to make some of the quicker reads offensively in terms of like the short roll playmaking. And we'll use them in some stuff like that. But attacking the gaps and being a next play guy or next pass guy, rather, and not being a ball stopper, if that makes sense. But and then now we have to kind of switch our focus, and we'll go to Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin had a really good year last season, well-deserved that contract extension that he had, or just contract in general that he got. And admittedly, I didn't think he was going to get it from the Pacers. I thought he was going to get a contract from somebody else, right? But obviously we know, jump out the freaking gym athlete, good offensive rebounder, provides some versatility defensively. And last season had one of his best seasons in his entire career in terms of 3-point efficiency. Shot the shit out of the ball last season. And you combine that with the finishing and the ability to play around the basket and things like that. Also, the fact he played all 82 games, so the Iron Man, if you will, for this team, led to him in terms of like EPM, had his most positive offensive season in his entire career. Obi Toppin's a good player. It just stinks that it's coming at the expense of Jarris Walker, who is still developing, but Jarris Walker with full opportunity could probably be this team's best defender. And I'm not being hyperbolic or like overreacting and exaggerating when I say that. Jarris Walker could be this team's best defender if he played right now. The switch ability, the kind of chaos Jarris Walker can create on ball, off the ball is so fun to watch. And the 3-point shot, that is developing, but we've seen glimpses of it, has some short roll playmaking ability. Even if the jumper in the self creation scoring in general isn't all the way there yet, he has the playmaking ability, against smalls or out of short rolls and things like that to supplement that. And I'm a big fan. I really, really hope he's able to get an opportunity here, and it might, unfortunately for him, have to come at the expense of an injury. Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman are we kind of already addressed them, I think, earlier. They're fine backup pieces, add some more depth to the room. But then Johnny Furphy, and my summary for him, I had him as a high upside swing, who has the size and versatility to be a quality NBA player. Has great positional size, coming in at 6'8", good versatility as well. Really, really good finisher around the rim. Finished at a 70% clip or so. Flash the athleticism and the craftiness around the basket to finish around bigger, more athletic players. Good shooter in terms of spot up situations specifically. Shot nearly 43% on spot up threes last season while at Kansas. He's a really, really smart and fluid player defensively. That's honestly the best compliment I could give him defensively. It's just his fluidity and IQ defensively, where especially in on-ball defensive possessions, you see the flashes of his athleticism and things like that. But he's also so often in the right spots away from the ball where he can kind of create havoc, get in the passing lanes, things like that. I also think he moves really, really well without the ball offensively, if I haven't already mentioned that. With him overall, some of his weaknesses, I think he just needs to fill out the frame. And this is such a perfect spot for him where there's no pressure whatsoever to play year one. Hell, maybe even year two, there is going to be a lot of pressure for him to play. There isn't, really anything, and this can be Kansas's fault if you want to put blame on somebody, or maybe it's just, lack of skill set. There's just nothing really being shown from him from an on-ball creation standpoint. His defensive technique isn't the best always, where, it can lead him to kind of getting beat off the bounce and put in situations where he may foul. But think about it this way, man. There's Keyshawn George from Miami. I like Johnny Furphy a whole lot more than I like Keyshawn George, who was a first-round pick. So Pacers get a steal, one of the best picks in the draft, in my opinion, and a guy that can kind of just stash to develop, and hopefully Rick Carl can get the job done here. But wrapping up here with our strengths and weaknesses and the Vegas over/under odds. Strength number one, it's the elite guard room this team has. Headed by Tyrese Halliburton, kind of have the three-headed monster going on here. One of the best point guards of the league, easily a top 10 point guard, top 20 player, and top 10 point guard. That goes without saying, but top 20 player on the planet. Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell, perfect fits for what this team needs. And then the 3-point shooting, they have guys that can just let it go, man. Tally, Nembhard, the starting five, essentially. Ben Shepherd, Benedict Mathurin, Johnny Furphy, if they need to get deep into the rotation. They have some other guys, too. They also added Enrique Freeman, too, which I forgot to mention. But that's a fun little pickup. I was at a 2-way contract. But, this team can let it go. And then the last thing is the pace and the paint touches. We keep talking about it, but they have guys for this system that they really, really need to get pressure on the rim, get downhill, get to the paint. And that's such a big, big part of how this team operates. And Rick Carlisle really, really does do a great job of getting the most out of some of these guys and really utilizing them in correct actions. Weaknesses, the biggest weakness for this team is just a regular season defense. I think this team's going to be a bottom 10 defense in the regular season, and would honestly surprise me if they weren't otherwise. And if this team is able to improve the regular season defense, these other two weaknesses are kind of ticky-tack weaknesses. It's number one, center reliability. Isaiah Jackson can't stay freaking healthy. I just don't think James Wiseman is a good basketball player. He has athletic traits, good finisher, stuff like that, but the reliability from the center spot, if Miles Turner were to miss 20 games, I know he's coming off of his healthiest season of his career, except his sophomore season. But that is something to be concerned with. And the self-creation scoring, Siakam is a good post up scorer, things like that, which is important. But, is it going to be that efficient during the regular season? And Nembhard's fun, but, these guys at the end of the day do really, really eat off of Hallie. So, but again, though, you can sell me on the Pascal scoring because, again, post up scoring is technically self creation. So really, really, really getting nitpicky there. Check out their Vegas odds, NBA Finals plus 5,000, staying away from that. Nothing really here I like. Plus 2,100 to come out of the Eastern Conference, minus 590 to make the playoffs, 47.5 over under win projection. The fact that this is lower than the Cavaliers is a joke, in my opinion, but it is what it is. And this Pacers team rounding out here, 12th in my power rankings. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Got a bunch of great content on the way. So make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe here to the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe and peace out.